Morning.
I'm functional.
And I'm literate.
And together we are functionally literate.
That's right. It takes us both, though.
Yeah.
Ryan is illiterate, and I am unfunctional. And that's just where we stand.
That's just where we stand. Today, we are going to talk about the death of Arthur. It's a long story getting to the death of Arthur. We're at the fourth story out of 21 of them. By the end of this episode, we'll be halfway through that story. We are going to be covering chapters 8 through 14 today.
Oh, yeah. And it's some spicy chapters.
Yeah. Where we left off, let's see. Arthur had been magically transported to a prison in his sleep and was made to have to agree to fight on a cowardly knight's behalf.
Yes, he is championing Sir Damas.
Yes. The other two knights that he was with, Sir Owain, he was just sent back home.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to get into what happened to the other knight right now.
Chapter 8. How Callum found himself by a well, and he took upon him to do battle against Arthur.
So, Sir Callum woke by a well, and he backed away from it because he was like half a foot from it, and he feared death from falling into the well.
Yeah, so in mine it says that he awoke partially hanging over the edge of the well.
That makes sense.
And so like he woke up, was like, oh my God. And, you know, then he like thanked God for not letting him fall in the well.
Mm-hmm. So then this, that makes more sense.
Yeah, that'd be terrifying. You wake up, you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm on the edge of a well.
So then this silver pipe comes out of the well and sprays water up like a fountain. Like a fancy fountain. And Callum, he watches this and he says to himself, Jesus save my Lord Arthur and King Uriens. These damsels are devils. They've betrayed us. When I get out of here, I'll destroy everything wherever I find these false damsels. Right then, a dwarf, who is described as having a great mouth and flat nose, appears before Sir Callum and salutes him, and he says, I am sent from Queen Morgan le Fay. She greets you well, and bids you be of strong heart. Tomorrow you shall fight at the hour of prime. That's 6 a.m., FYI. To this end, she has sent me to deliver you Excalibur and its scabbard. She orders you to do this for her love, that you do as you said when you spoke of it in private, and that you battle your hardest, without mercy, and whatever damsel brings the head of the night that you'll battle will be made a queen. Sir Callum says, I see. Well, now that I have Excalibur, I'll do as I have promised. When did you see my queen? And he's like, right late. Which I assume means, like, recently.
Last night.
Your last night.
Yeah.
So, I just think it's funny how he's just, like, at first, when he doesn't know Morgan did this, he's like, those witches! And then, like, he finds out Morgan did it. And he's like,
Oh, this all checks out. I see. Yeah, so in my version, it's, I guess, a little more plainly spoken. That he's like, oh, this is a trick. Those wenches.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dwarf shows up and says, hey, Morgan le Fay did that. And he's like, oh, why? And he's like, well, here's what's going to happen.
The shenanigans.
Here's Excalibur. He's like, oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
I got Excalibur. He goes, yeah. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to fight a knight. And when you kill that knight, it will open the way for you to become the king of all of England.
Yeah.
And Morgan le Fay will be your queen, which you want.
See,
because you love her and she loves you.
And it says as much later, but it didn't make sense in this moment.
Yeah, so in mine, the dwarf is telling him, like,
hey, this is what's up.
You're going to be king.
Remember,
you're going to get to... It doesn't say you will kill Arthur and King Uriens.
Yeah.
But it says, like, the night you will fight will set in motion a chain of events that will allow for the death of King Arthur and King Uriens, and so you will get to be.
Yeah. So, Callum takes the dwarf in his arms, and he says, tell my lady that I will do all I have promised her, or die for it. Then he lets go of the dwarf. Now, I assume she's arranged equipment and enchantments for this battle. You better believe it.
It's like, she stacked the deck in my favor, right? It's like, oh, yeah.
So right then, Sir Onslake and a lady with 6 squires just, they come up and they salute Accolon, and the knight asked he come and rest at his manor. So Accolon did as requested, and he had a nice time at a fair manor. Sir Onslake's manor.
He's a good man.
Yeah. So that evening, Sir Onslake receives word from his brother, Sir Damas, that it's time for battle, which presents as something of a problem, because Onslake recently had been wounded. He had taken a spear to his thighs, and he hadn't yet recovered. How do you take a spear to both of your thighs? Like, was he stabbed through both legs?
I don't exactly know that. The realistic logistics of it are a little strange. But
maybe he was slashed with...
This is an injury that will continue to come up.
It is.
Being wounded in the thigh.
Yeah.
And
both thighs.
There is some significance to that. I can't, off the top of my head, recall. I mean, I've read about this. There's a long history of men being injured in the thigh. Like the Grail King specifically, the king that has the Holy Grail but can't make use of it, is almost always injured in the thigh. There seems to be some sort of tie to that injury and like an incomplete or a weak manliness.
I mean, I can see why that would prevent you from jousting. Like,
yeah. I mean, you're crippled. You can't hardly walk.
Yeah.
You're sort of in a literal way, like impotent. You just can't do things yourself. But you don't really see women that are injured in the thigh. So I also think in some ways there's like a phallic association. It's men that are injured in the thigh, very close to the groin.
By spears.
Right. And so I think it's this sort of like emasculinity that sort of comes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so, I can't speak too broadly on it right now.
So, Onslake, he had been wounded in the thighs, so he couldn't do this fight himself. But hey, Providence, Accolon is here.
I happen to have a good knight in my company.
And Accolon is willing and able.
Well, yeah, he was told, hey, you're going to fight a knight tomorrow.
Well, not that he told Onslake that. But
yeah. But now Onslake's like, hey, would you fight a knight tomorrow for me?
Absolutely.
He's like, oh, buddy, would I?
Yeah. So the next morning, Arthur is armed. He's on horseback. He's ready. He asks Sir Damas, when do we fight? Sir Damas is like, sir, we must hear mass first. And Arthur's like, yes, quite right.
Of course.
So they go to church first.
He's a coward, but he's not a heathen.
Yeah. So afterwards, a squire of Sir Onslake's comes and asks if Sir Damas's knight was ready, because their knight was already in the field. So Arthur mounts his horse again. He comes to the fighting field. The field was, so I'm going to set the stage here, it was filled with knights and commoners of Sir Damas's lands. One of Morgan Le Fay's damsels came to Arthur and said, here, your sister brings you your sword, for which Arthur was grateful. But it wasn't Excalibur. This damsel was false, for, quote, the sword and the scabbard was counterfeit and brittle and false. So he'd been given a sword that looked like Excalibur, but wasn't.
It was just like a regular kind of shitty sword.
No, Accolon has his sword.
That's right. And more importantly, the scabbard.
Chapter 9 of the battle between King Arthur and Accolon.
So, before we get into this fight, we should talk about the importance of Excalibur as a reminder for people that might not remember, or maybe just didn't listen to earlier episodes. Yeah. If this is your first episode, weird choice, but we're going to make it work. So Excalibur is like the magic sword.
Yeah.
Like it can, like it is amazing. Like it doesn't break.
I mean, presumably it's indestructible. It makes you super strong. It never misses. Like when you swing it, you're gonna hit. It cuts through everything. Is all the stuff.
Yeah. The scabbard, though,
much better.
When you are wearing it, while you may be cut, you will not bleed, which is very important in a sword fight.
Your wounds do not bleed. You can get cut, theoretically, 1,000,000 times. It would not matter.
You won't bleed out.
Yeah.
The blood will stay in the body, even if your skin turns to ribbons.
Yeah.
which is terrifying. But
I'm not sure how that magic works, but it does.
Yeah. So Arthur, going into this fight, believes that those are the advantages that he has. Accolon, going into this fight, knows those are the advantages that he has.
Yeah. This is a reckless sword fight. It's about to happen.
Yeah. So here's the play-by-play. They come at each other with spears. They simultaneously knock each other off their horses. They both stand up, draw their swords, and they fight that way. So while they're fighting, Nimue enters the field. She knew of Morgan Le Fay's plan to kill Arthur. She wanted to save him. More on that later. The fight. As they're fighting, none of Arthur's blows are dealing as much damage as they should, and Accolon's sword is cutting into the steel of his own sword. And Arthur's losing a lot of blood, and Accolon isn't. So it seems to Arthur that, like, Accolon must be holding Excalibur. Like, It's just like this, that I'm confused. It doesn't make sense. And Accolon says, "Now, knight, keep away from me." In response, Arthur whacks him on the head, causing Accolon to stoop and nearly fall down. But he recovers. He withdraws slightly, and he brings Excalibur down on Arthur's head so hard that he did fall down. Neither man liked being hit on the head. So
I don't know many men that do.
No. So, now they're both fully enraged and still fighting. Oh, and for context, neither of them realize who the other is.
Yeah, that'll come up a lot in these stories, is that two knights will fight, and they won't... I mean, it happened to Balin and Balin.
Yeah.
They fought each other to death. They didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, in that one, it made a little more sense because, Balin was the Red Knight.
Yeah.
Right? And then Balin didn't have his shield that,
right. Well, and Arthur doesn't have his equipment. It's all been provided by Sir Damas.
Yeah. As for Accolon, I mean, maybe he got some stuff from...
I think it's custom if you're fighting as the champion of someone, you wear their heraldry, not your own.
Makes sense.
Because you're their representative.
So they're fighting. Arthur is losing a lot of blood and he's tired. Accolon's also tired, but he was confident with Excalibur in his hands.
And not bleeding at all.
Right. So him being tired didn't really mean much. Yeah. He just kept going. So the people watching this, they felt sympathy for Arthur because he was losing a lot of blood by now and still going.
Mm-hmm.
So Arthur withdraws. He's trying to get his stamina back, right? Accolon says, "It is no time for me to let you rest," and keeps going at it.
Fair.
Arthur brings his pommel down on Accolon's helmet. Accolon falls to the ground face
first. You learned that one from Sir Kay, by the way.
Yeah. Which, I love that. Like, my wife told me about this. She was like, listen, that's what the pommel is for. Yes. Like, you use that to whack people on the head.
It's heavy, partially to counterweight the blade, but also to be used as a weapon when necessary.
Yeah. So, Arthur hit him so hard with the pommel that the blade broke at the crossguard. So the blade just falls out of the handle. So Arthur's he's just left there standing with a shield and a pommel.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's fearing for his death, but he's still fighting. He holds his shield up and that broken sword, he's not yielding.
Chapter 10. How King Arthur saw that he fought would break, and how he recovered of Accolon his sword Excalibur, and overcame his enemy.
So this kind of puts Accolon in a weird situation, right? Like, this guy's still fighting and he doesn't have a blade.
Yeah. So this is one of those, I don't know if this is honorable or not.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he's still fighting, so I can't yield, because then I'm a coward.
Yeah.
But also, he has no weapon, so if I win, they're like, yeah, but you beat a guy with no sword.
Right. So Accolon says, "Knight, you are beaten. You are weaponless, and you've lost much blood. I would hate to slay you like this, so yield to me as a coward." Arthur's like, "No!
Never.
I swore to fight to the death. I would rather die honorably than live with shame. And if I could live 100 times, I would rather die 100 times than yield to you. I may lack a weapon, but I lack no honor. If you kill me weaponless, that will be your shame." Man, what
He's
a line.
got you in a corner. And again, he's fighting on behalf of the coward.
I know.
So he's like, I I will not. So that the guy who put me up to this knows that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. Aguilon doesn't have that context, just his own. He's just like,
Yeah.
well, then I
Okay.
suppose I'll be shamed. Best keep your distance, for you're a dead man. So Aguilon strikes Arthur hard enough to knock him to the ground. He demands Arthur cry mercy. Instead, Arthur presses back at him with his shield and just starts hammering at him with his pommel.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Forcing Aguilon to get, because so the way that it was explained here, right? Like, Aguilon is on top of Arthur right now. And he's like, yield, and Arthur's just like beating him with the fucking pommel.
I won't.
It forces Aguilon to have to get up and take a few steps back because he couldn't like slice at him when he's on top of him.
Yeah. He was too close for the sword to be effective.
Yeah. So we get back to Nimue. On Aguilon's next attack, she uses her magic to cause Excalibur to fall to the ground. Arthur leaps for the blade. The moment he had it in his hand, he knew for a fact that he was holding Excalibur. And so he says, we have this tender moment between man and sword, when he says to Excalibur, "You have been away from me for too long, and you've done much damage to me." Then he sees the scabbard that's hanging on Aguilon's side, and he immediately grabs that shit and throws it. Just hurls it away as fast, as quickly as he can. And he says to Aguilon, "O knight, today you have hurt me greatly with this sword. Now you shall die. I will reward you with this sword as you have awarded me. You've made me endure much pain and lose much blood." And he rushes Aguilon. He grabs Aguilon by his plate, pulls him forward, and throws him down, right? He tears off Aguilon's helmet, batters him on the head with his pommel until blood was coming out of Aguilon's ears, nose, and mouth. And then he says, "Now I will kill you." And Aguilon says, "Kill me then, as it pleases you. You are the best knight that I have ever found. I see that God is with you. But I promise to fight to the death, so I shall not yield to live a coward. I shall never yield, but let God do with my body what he will." So when Aguilon says this, Arthur, those synapses start firing. He makes a connection. He's like, "Tell me, or I'll kill you now. What country are you from? What court?" Like, he's suspecting what's going on right now.
Wait a minute.
Hold on. So he's like, "Sir Knight, I am of the court of King Arthur. My name is Aguilon of Gaul." That's France. And this is all the information Arthur needed to finally figure out that Morgan Le Fay had betrayed him, but he needed to hear it. He needed to hear it from Aguilon. So he's like, "Sir Knight, I ask you, tell me now who gave you this sword and how you got it."
I think there's some details here that matter. Like, first, that Arthur, he didn't lose.
No.
Even before he got Excalibur back. He fought a knight wielding Excalibur against him and didn't lose. There's a lot of emphasis put on Excalibur and how powerful a sword that it is.
No.
That I think it sometimes overshadows that Arthur himself is a very impressive man.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of things in Arthur's past, the whole murdering all the firstborn thing, that you're like, oh, this is really fucked up.
Yeah, never forget Mayday, guys.
Yeah,
that
Arthur's
happened.
like really bad. And it's like, yeah. But where there is terrible stuff, there's also lots of good.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to remember, like, look, he's a fantastic knight. He's very brave.
Yeah.
He, at this point, is figured out. He's fighting against a guy that has his sword.
Yeah.
And he's got no sword. And he's like, fucking kill me, bro. Like, that's it. I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
And he wins. He beats someone wielding Excalibur. So the power of Arthur's leadership is not in the sword itself. He is, without the sword, still an amazing knight and a fantastic king.
Credit to Nimue. Not a guaranteed chance that
Yeah, she doesn't use magic to give Arthur the sword back.
Yeah.
She uses magic to take it away from Accolon. And that's reflected again when he does get the sword and he rips the scabbard off. He doesn't put it on and like save himself.
Yeah.
He takes it and throws it away. He goes, now we're both bleeding. It's not, aha, now I'm not bleeding and you are. Now we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
So he could have put it on and he didn't.
Yeah.
And then he could have just outright killed Accolon. But he's like, you know what? You've hurt me with my own sword. Fair is fair. And he just beats his ass with it.
Yeah.
He's like, you're going to hurt first.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of like righteous revenge where he's like, I'm not avoiding my own pains. I'm accepting all of my pains and the faults that those imply.
And now you're going to accept them.
And now you're accepting your pains. And we're going to share in this together. Yeah. That I think is important. And then the willingness to hear him out, like, all right, you got my sword somehow, but you're speaking virtuously. Yeah. So you deserve to say your piece before anything else happens.
Yeah.
Chapter 11. How Accolon confessed the treason of Morgan le Fay, King Arthur's sister, and how she would have done slay him.
So, in this moment, Accolon is being a bit reflective.
Yeah.
He's like, that sword wasn't worth it.
There is an introspective moment that every man goes through right before he dies.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute.
He's like, that sword wasn't worth it. It guaranteed my death. And Arthur's like, that may be. That's all he says. He's waiting for Accolon to answer his question.
Yeah.
I will tell you, sir, that sword has been in my keeping for nearly a year. Morgan le Fay, wife of King Uriens, sent it to me yesterday. A dwarf was charged by her to send it to me with the intent that I kill her brother, King Arthur. You must understand that King Arthur is the man that she hates most in the world, because he is the most honorable and skilled. She took me as a lover, and I her. If she succeeds in killing Arthur, she'll kill her husband too. She devised to make me king so that she could reign as queen. But now that is all over. I know that I die here. King Arthur's like, well, I'm not sure that would have worked. It would have been quite damaging to your reputation to kill your lord. A fair point, Accolon says. But now that I've told you the truth, please tell me where you come from. What court do you hail? Oh, Accolon, now I will let you know that I am King Arthur, who you have wounded greatly. And Accolon is mortified.
Yeah. Not only for having fought King Arthur now with Excalibur, but telling him everything he just said. He's like, fuck.
He's like, fair, sweet lord, have mercy. I knew not it was you. And Arthur's like, oh, Sir Accolon, I sense that you are honest, that you did not know it was me. But, as I understand it, you agreed to kill me. You are a traitor, but I blame you less than I blame my sister. Through her illusion, she has made you to agree and fall in love, but it is a false love. I will get my revenge on her, and all of Christendom shall speak of it, all the Christian kingdoms. God knows I have honored her more than all my family, and I have trusted her more than my own wife. So Arthur calls for the keepers of the field. Oh yeah, so before this fight, there was like 12 knights that were assigned to make sure the duel went as it should. So like, there's a crowd, everyone's watching, and you gotta have security.
Yeah. Because otherwise the crowd's going to want to get involved, and you're like, that's not allowed.
Yeah.
Or the knights are going to try to involve the crowd to their advantage. You're like, can't do that either.
So Arthur, he goes to the keepers of the field, and he says, sirs, come here, for we are 2 knights that have fought hard and are wounded. We would have killed each other had we not spoken. Had we known each other, there would have been no fight at all. Accolon cries out to the knights, O lords, this noble knight that I have fought with is the most skilled man, the most honorable man. He is King Arthur, our liege lord, and by mishap and misadventure I would have killed this man that I am beholden to. That's a chapter.
There you go.
That's
I think this speaks to Arthur's honor, where he's like, you know what? You did fuck up. You're gonna betray me. You did betray me.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't know you were killing me right now, but you absolutely planned to facilitate my death.
Mm-hmm.
However, you were manipulated, and I will forgive you because you've been honest.
Yeah.
And then I also think it kind of speaks to a moral point of like Arthur saying, you know, I've trusted my sister with everything, even more than my own wife. That's probably not a good idea.
No.
I'm not saying don't trust your sisters, but not more than your own wife.
Yeah.
Your wife should be the most trusted woman in your life.
Speaking personally, this is an issue that I've come across. Not with, like, siblings, but, like, I have had friends before my wife who didn't really like my wife. And, you know, they said a lot of things that maybe I shouldn't have let them say. And, you know, because they were my friends, I wanted to, like, trust them. And it really put me between a rock and a hard place, like having to choose between my friends and my wife. But, like, ultimately, you gotta go with your wife.
But it's just always a good idea to put your spouse first.
Yeah, really.
You gotta do that.
Chapter 12. How Arthur accorded to brethren.
So Accolon says this. Everyone falls to their knees and cries mercy. Arthur, being Arthur, forgives them.
Yeah, that's what a good man will do.
It's what he does. So then he laid down some kingly commands. After forgiving them, he said he was tired, so he'll be brief. He demanded that Sir Damas yield his lands and manor to Sir Onslake, as he judged Damas an orgulous and villainous knight. Orgulous means proud, but I'm getting negative connotations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, proud in a bad, not like, oh, you should be proud of that piece of art that you made. Proud like, you're a cocky prick.
Right. This episode is brought to you by the Maplewood Barn Community Theater. It is a community theater in my town, Columbia, Missouri, where I like to volunteer my time as an actor. I like to do that once or twice a year. Currently, I am in rehearsal for a show called Lady Windermere's Fan. It is going to be running from August 29th through September 1st, and then September 5th through September 8th. So, here's my story to entertain all the folks at home when this ad is no longer relevant. So, it's a Wednesday. We're in rehearsal, and we're getting pretty close to the show, right? Like, this week, we got all of our costumes and everything, and my character, his name is Lord Darlington.
Romantic.
And so, yeah, he's supposed to look like a very suave individual, right?
Did you get a velvet smoking jacket?
It's not velvet, but I have a jacket.
Okay.
I don't think it's a smoking jacket. It looks more like a tuxedo thing.
Okay.
But the director wanted me to have like wavy curly hair, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the other actresses, she for the first time ever applied a curling iron to my hair. I've never done that before, right? So this lady just curled up my hair, and she didn't get it quite right. She was like, I think you need to wash your hair, and we'll try again tomorrow. I was like, okay, cool. But it was still like gorgeous. And so I was like, I go out and I'm like, look at my hair, look at my hair, look at my hair. And everybody's like, oh my God, your hair. And then Noelle, she's playing Lady Windermere. Mm-hmm. So I was so caught up in my hair that I forgot that, hey, we're in rehearsal and there's people on the stage right now, right? So Noelle, she's backstage by one of the entrances waiting for her cue to go on stage. But I just have to show her my hair, right? So I go running over to her. I'm like, Noelle, 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 Noelle. And I go past her into the light because it was very important for there to be light for when I show off my hair. And I spin around. I'm like, look at my hair, look at my hair, look at my hair. And she's like, oh my God, it's beautiful. But then I realize, oh shit, there's two people on stage. And they turn back and look at me. And I'm like, oh shit. And then I run off stage. Literally was rolling on the floor, laughing at how much of a jackass I was. And then the lady that curled my hair was like, you're going to get your hair dirty. And I'm like, I don't fucking care.
You got to wash it and redo it anyway. At least it was just a rehearsal.
It was just a rehearsal. And I was so apologetic, but everybody was like, no, that was a very Lord Darlington thing to do. Like,
That's right. You're very method.
nobody was upset with me. They all thought it was funny. And I made a point of apologizing to everybody on stage after the fact. And they were like, no, that was so fucking funny. just this fucking jackass just like appearing like, look at my hair, look at my hair, look at my hair, look at me, look at me.
I'm Lord Darlington.
Anyways, it's going to be a really fun show. So if you are hearing this before the show starts, once again, those dates are August 29th through September 1st, and then September 5th through September 8th.
2024.
2024.
Yes.
Yes.
Not the year of our Lord 2025. That will be too late.
Yes. So if you live in or around Columbia and you are interested in seeing a show, please come. It's outdoor seating, so, bring lawn chairs or something, or picnic blankets. It's bring your own booze, rather. But we have concessions there as well, like, popcorn and ice cream and candy bars and soda and crap like that. It's super fun. And this is the last show of the season, so I hope you come. All right, back to the show.
The condition for this command was that Sir Onslake annually give Damas a palfrey to ride, as it would be more suitable for him than his courser. To put it in more modern terms, this would be like if someone took away your Ferrari and told you to drive a minivan instead.
Yeah, so in mine, he specifies, it's like, because it is only just that a knight should ride a courser. So he's just saying, like, you don't deserve that as a mount. Like, we're going to put you on just this crappy little riding horse.
Yeah.
Because that's what you deserve. You suck.
Yeah. Like, he's still a knight, so he's still getting a perk, which is guaranteed a horse a year.
Yeah.
But
it's not a good horse.
It's not a good horse.
It is not a horse you'd be like, oh yeah, this joust is going to go great.
This is a horse you give your princess or your damsel.
Yeah. Or like you teach your children to ride on.
Yeah.
Like it's a very tame, small horse, not a draft horse, it's not a war horse.
Cowardly horse.
Yeah, it's me.
He also ordered Damas to never bother a knight riding on his adventures ever again. He was to free the 20 knights he had imprisoned, return them their things, and if any of those knights ever came to Arthur to complain about Damas, he would have Damas killed.
Yeah. It's like, if I ever hear someone bitch about you again, I will not put up
I
with it.
never want to hear from you ever fucking again. Ever.
It
That's
better
the
be
king's
good
command.
things if I hear your name.
So to Sir Onslake, he says that you are a good and honorable knight. You must come to my court soon. Onslake laments his wound, or in this moment, he's like, oh man, I wish that I hadn't been wounded, or I could have fought alongside you. Arthur agreed, because then he would not have been hurt so badly. If only you could have fought for yourself.
He's like, I agree, it would have been much better for me if you were the one fighting, because you wouldn't have had Excalibur.
Yeah. So then he tells Onslake about Morgan's plot, which is why he was so greatly wounded. Onslake felt that this was a great pity. And so Arthur said that he would get his reward in that his enemies would get their reward in due time.
Yeah, he swears vengeance against Morgan Le Fay.
Indeed. So Arthur learned he was 2 days' ride from Camelot. Keep in mind, he was teleported here. He really has no idea where the fuck he is.
Yeah. He's like, I'm somewhere.
It's not until he, establishes to the people around him, hey, I am your king. Tell me where I am, that he finds out.
Oh, yeah.
So he decides to take Accolon with him to rest at the local abbey. Now that he knows where he is, he knows where he's going.
Yeah.
So there, they treated his wounds and Accolon's wounds with leeches. Which,
gotta do that.
I mean, that's really all they've got to.
It's a very important medical step.
I mean, back then,
you gotta get out the bad blood, get in the good blood.
Right, but the problem was, Arthur now has his scabbard, So he's not... Don't mind that. So he's not, like, worried about bleeding out. Accolon no longer has the scabbard. He is worried about bleeding out. Those leeches didn't really do him much good. He passed out after 4 days. Sorry, he did not pass out after 4 days. He died after 4 days.
He passed away.
He passed away.
Of his wounds.
Out and away of this immortal coil. So, now that Accolon's dead, Arthur arranged for Accolon's body to be, and I love this.
This is very petty.
He arranged for Accolon's body to be placed on a horse litter to be delivered by 6 knights to Camelot, specifically to Morgan Le Fay, with a message. This is my gift to you. I have Excalibur and the scabbard. That was the message.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love that. I love that. Now he knows, and now he's gonna be an ass.
Yeah. Sends her lover's corpse to her and says, I got the sword, bitch. And the scabbard. Get fucked.
Very succinct message.
Love it.
Like, he doesn't need
It's
to,
so good.
it kind of goes back to what he was saying about, which knight was it? Was it, Sir Tor? Or, no, it was, what, was it Sir Tor? He was like, he says little.
He says little and does more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's what this is.
Yeah, he said, I don't need to talk. I don't need to wax eloquent about what I'm going to do. Okay? You need to know, I got the sword.
I have a gift.
You'll figure it out.
I have my gift.
Yeah, thank you.
Chapter 13. How Morgan would have slain Sir Uriens, her husband, and how Sir Owain, her son, saved him.
Yeah, so Morgan's obviously upset because her lover's dead.
Yeah.
Now, part of the plan was King Uriens, her husband, was also going to die. And she's like, all right, well, I got to take care of this.
So in my version, she didn't know yet at this point.
Oh, okay, so Accolon hasn't arrived.
No.
So she's like, plans going off without a hitch.
She is currently under the impression that because there's no way her plan could fail, that right now King Arthur is dead. And so because she believes that, she is gonna go kill her husband.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
well, to her credit then, she is keeping her word.
And, honestly, if not for Nimue, she probably would be right in this moment.
Yeah.
She's not aware that Nimue is back.
Yeah.
So, because she thought her brother was dead, she goes to her most trusted maiden. She says, go fetch my lord's sword, for I haven't seen a better time to kill him than now. And her maiden says, oh, madam, if you kill our lord, you'll never escape. Never you mind, Morgan says.
Yeah.
I see that now is the best time to do it, so go quickly now and fetch me his sword. The damsel left to go get the sword. But before she did that, she went to Morgan's son, Owain.
Oh, I'm going to keep saying Owain. Ryan has a Welsh friend.
Who you've been hearing from.
Yeah, who was kind enough to read our little blurbs. So he is insistent that this is a Welsh name. And I'm not saying he's wrong about that. I'm not like, he's put his foot down and I disagree. It is a Welsh name. And it is pronounced Owain.
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 I, however, am stubborn and American. So, in my American accent, I will continue to pronounce it Owain because I like that it rhymes with Gawain.
Who are cousins.
Right, and they are cousins germain.
Yeah.
So, I like it, and I'm going to stick to it, and you know what? They're just going to be like, those dumb Americans. And you're right. 100%. Not arguing.
I think it's totally fair, because I looked up, phonetically how Gawain is pronounced, and it's Gawain.
Yeah. Well, and they're spelled different. Gawain is W-A-I-N, so technically they were supposed to rhyme.
In my book, it's actually not. It's for both of them, it's W-A-I-N-E. It's just with Owain, there's a U in front, and with Gawain, there's a G-A in front.
Oh, see, mine, Gawain is G-A-W-A-I-N.
Uh-huh.
Gawain. And Uwayn/Uwine is Uwayne.
Yeah.
So they're spelled differently, such as you would expect from names that are pronounced differently. But again, I'm a stubborn American. I like that they rhyme. That's fun to me, and I'm going to keep it.
I will get confused because Zach will not also be saying wine, so I'm going to go ahead and go with Wayne also. So, well, anyways, getting back to the story. So, Morgan's maiden goes to Owain, wakes him up, and tells him, "Get up and see to your mother, for she will kill your father in his bed. I'm to go get his sword for her now." And so Owain's like, "Do as she said. I will deal with this." Mm-hmm. So the damsel goes and brings the sword to Morgan with shaking hands. Because,
she's terrified. Yeah, this is... Your lady is unhinged. She's like, go get the sword so I can murder this guy. She's like, what the f*** is wrong with you?
Morgan takes the sword from the scabbard, strides over to her husband's bedside. She takes a moment to consider how best to strike him with this sword to kill him. She lifts the sword high, ready to strike, and then Owain leaps on her. He catches her by the hand and says, "What will you do now, fiend? If you weren't my mother, I'd cut off your head."
Yeah, I think in mine he says something to the effect of, like, how could I recognize my mother in this monster that you are?
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, that's spicy. What a sick burn.
It really was, because Morgan was speechless.
Yeah.
He continues to speak, because she doesn't say anything. He's like, men say that Merlin is devil spawn, but I say a devil bore me.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's a good one, too.
And so Morgan, she's like, "Oh, my son, have mercy on me. I was tempted by a devil. I cry mercy. I will never do this again. Please, spare my honor and tell no one about this." Wayne's like, "If you swear, I'll forgive you. You'll never try this again?" "No, son, I swear." That's the chapter.
Props to Uwain here for being a good man.
Yeah.
He said, wait, so I'm going to murder my father? And it's my mother? He stops her. Doesn't kill her. It's very merciful of him.
Yeah.
Considering her promise, you have no reason to believe.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I would never. And he's like, okay. I'm going to choose to believe you.
Because you're my mom.
Really suspect.
I mean... honestly, he set her up well. Because, in this moment, I think that she probably was caught, no, not probably. She was caught flat-footed. So I don't think she had an excuse ready to go. If he hadn't been going on about devils, she probably wouldn't have even mentioned it.
Yeah. Well, and he was very wise in the waiting to see it happen.
That's also true.
Because if the handmaid comes to him and was like, oh, your mom told me to do this. He was like, oh, don't do that. I'm going to go talk to her. Mm-hmm. Then Morgan could have been like, well, she's a lying bitch. You know? There was a way to get out of it. So he's like, no. Let it go. Let's see what happens. And then as soon as she raised the sword, he's like, all right, what are you raising the sword? You have no excuse at this point.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
Witch.
I caught you. There's no way, oops. Oops, draw the sword, and oops, it's over my father's head.
Yeah.
There's no way to be like, I didn't mean it. Yeah. So her only out is possession.
Yeah. I was possessed by a devil. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. But the devil's gone now.
It's gone. You've saved me.
And your father.
And your dad. Yeah. Woo. Look at you.
Chapter 14. How Queen Morgan Le Fay made great sorrow for the death of Accolon, and how she stole away the scabbard from Arthur.
Morgan's having a tough time with things, huh?
It's been a rough weekend.
Her plan to kill her husband failed.
Yeah. Plan to kill her brother failed.
Yeah, now she's finding out about that.
Yeah.
She's getting that message. She's getting Accolon's body.
Her son hates her, presumably.
She sees Accolon's body. Her heart nearly broke. But she couldn't let anyone know why this death upset her so much. Because Accolon was a secret lover.
Right. A paramour.
Right. So, outwardly, she was stone-faced. She says.
She's like, oh, whatever this guy is.
So I have a quote here because I didn't understand it, so I didn't translate it.
Mm-hmm.
But well she wist, and she abode, till her brother Arthur came thither. There should no gold go for her life. So I understand most of this. She knew that she had to leave before her brother showed up.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what there should no gold go for her life means.
I think it's a reference to some kind of ransom.
So, like, nothing would save her.
Yeah.
When Arthur showed up.
Yeah. It's like there's no amount of money in the world that you could pay him to not kill her.
Yeah.
So she's like, I have to go. Like, I don't have the money. The world doesn't have the money.
Money's not even a factor. This
He
is
doesn't.
just straight up betrayal.
Yeah. He's like, there's honor and principle on the line here. Okay, you cannot buy that.
Yeah. Like, that must just be, like, just the worst position to be in. You get this body, you get a message, like, this is my gift to you. I have the sword and scabbard.
Yeah.
So she goes to Queen Guinevere, and she asks permission to leave. Guinevere says no. She must wait until Arthur arrives. Guinevere doesn't know anything. She's just saying that. She's just like, no, you can't just leave. You gotta see your brother first.
Right.
Like, let him get back from his hunt. Morgan said she couldn't wait. She had urgent business. And so Guinevere, ignorant to Morgan's plotting also, she's like, well, then depart when you wish.
So in mine, she specifically says, I have urgent business with Arthur, which is why I can't wait for him to come back.
Okay.
It's like, I have to go to him now.
Interesting.
And so the queen's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Go.
I love the dramatic irony of that.
Yeah.
Like,
well, because Guinevere would be like, oh, you're going to, like, help my husband. Yeah, go.
Absolutely, go. Yeah. So early the next day, she takes her horse. She rides all day, most of the night. The next morning, she arrives at the abbey that King Arthur was recovering in. She asks the abbey's nuns where he was, even though she already knew. She's putting on appearances. So the nuns tell her that he's been getting bed rest. He's had very little sleep these past 3 nights. She told them that none of them were to wake him until after she woke him. So she dismounts her horse, intending to steal Excalibur again. She goes straight to his room, finds him asleep in his bed, holding unsheathed Excalibur really tight in his right hand. Like he's sleeping like that. She curses. She's like, fuck. She can't get the sword without waking him. She knew that if she did wake him, she was dead. So instead, she takes his scabbard and flees the abbey. Arthur wakes up shortly after this because, it's morning. He slept in because he's wounded, but he still wakes up in the morning. He's a king, damn it. So he wakes up.
Stuff to do.
He wakes up pretty shortly after she leaves and asks the nuns what became of his scabbard. The nuns tell him that his sister paid him a visit, put it under her cloak, and left. He's like, you did a terrible job watching me. And they're like, but sir, we dare not disobey your sister's orders. I mean, this is a queen we're talking about.
Yeah, they were between a rock and a hard place. They're like, you were unconscious. She's bossing us around. We can't say no to her. It's like, what did you want?
Yeah. So he's like, fetch me my horse, and tell Sir Onslake to arm himself quickly, mount his horse, and ride with me. As he ordered, it happened. People do what he says. So they ride after Morgan. They find a cow herd. And they ask him if he'd seen a lady ride past, because they made a pretty good guess of like where Morgan was going. And they had the right of it. This cow herd tells them, sir, a lady rode past with 40 horses into that forest there. So now I'm guessing here. This is common when they'll talk about like, oh yeah, no, someone rode with 40 horses or someone rode with 100 horses. They're talking about horsemen, right?
Yes, yeah, it's not just the horses.
Okay, cool.
People are riding.
Okay, so I notated this correctly.
She's got her entourage with her.
Okay, so she's been doing all these shenanigans with a troop, a fleet, an army. What do you call 40?
40 would be a company. You know,
Company.
it's an entourage. It's I mean, by today's military standards, too. They didn't use that.
No, I don't think so. So, the knights with this information from the cowherd ride in that direction. Pretty soon, Arthur could see her riding, so he spurs his horse on quicker. She sees him making chase. She spurs her horse on quicker. She rides into this forest and then eventually exits the forest, coming upon a lake. And she says, "Whatsoever may come of me, my brother shall not have this scabbard." And then she takes it, she hurls it into the lake, and it just sinks. And the reason why it sinks, and I thought this was interesting, because the narrative hadn't mentioned it before this moment. The reason why it sunk and sunk quickly is because the scabbard was adorned with, like, jewels and gold. So, like, it was heavy.
Very fancy.
It was very fancy.
Very
and
weighty.
Weighty, yeah. So she does that. And then she rides into a valley full of boulders, and she conjures this illusion to make herself, her horse, and her 40 horsemen and their horses look like boulders too. Mm-hmm. So it just made this bouldery valley look even more bouldery.
Yeah. So she's a pretty powerful sorceress.
Oh yeah. That was a pretty great illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So Onslake and Arthur, they ride into this valley. And they see no sign of where, they, could have possibly gone. Just no idea. They couldn't find Morgan. They couldn't find the scabbard. So, they left, and Arthur's just like, damn, what a misadventure. Mm-hmm. Nothing became of it.
Yeah.
So when they left, Morgan dismisses the illusion. She says to her men, "Sirs, now we can go where we please." So that's the end of the chapter. And that's the end of the episode. That's where we leave off. Morgan won.
Yeah, well, and this is in some ways like the beginning of the real fall of Arthur. Up until now, it was a lot of building up.
Yeah.
And there's still going to be some high points to come, but the real fall starts now.
You think so?
Because when Arthur got Excalibur, Merlin said, "Which do you prize more? The blade or the scabbard?"
He said the blade.
"Surely the sword."
Yeah.
And Merlin said, "Then you're a fool.
You're stupid.
The scabbard is worth far more."
Yeah.
And he's just lost it. And he's lost it forever. He'll never have that back.
That's unfortunate.
And so really everything bad that happens now is a result of this sort of loss of the protection that Arthur had.
Makes sense. Up to this point, he fought a lot of wars, didn't bleed out a single time.
And there are wars to come, and he will win them. But
they'll be more challenging.
They're more personally dangerous to him, and ultimately his death comes about because he just can't continue to battle. It can't happen. And I think there's an interesting metaphor there with now Excalibur is a sword that cannot be put away.
Yeah. Because, he could get a scabbard for it, but it's not going to achieve the same purpose.
Yeah, well, I mean, metaphorically, it now cannot be put away. Literally, he could put it in a sheath.
Yeah.
Now, you might argue that logistically, the enchantment won't allow it to be put in
I believe the metaphor that we used was you do not put a nuclear bomb in a gun safe.
Right. It just wouldn't work.
That's what he has to do now.
Yeah. But narratively, it's like the sword that is his leadership, the rule, the constant war. It can't stop. He can't put the sword away. He is now a king that rules by the sword.
Damn.
Because if he doesn't, he'll be killed.
Yeah.
And he can be.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have any enchantment protecting him.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
I think it's also interesting that he got the sword out of a lake. He loses the scabbard to a lake.
Yeah.
But, as we'll get towards the end of the book, when Arthur does die, the sword gets thrown into a lake.
Really?
But when it does, a hand comes out of the lake and catches it and brings it down into the water. No hand caught that.
Scabbard.
So it's as if there was this sort of predestination to Arthur's death, that the sword gets returned to the proper place. They were expecting the sword back. They were not expecting the scabbard. or it was put in the wrong place.
Yeah, I mean, they don't specify if this lake is the same lake. I don't have any reason to believe that it is the same lake.
Yeah. One, a sorceress, a magical, mystical woman gives Arthur the sword.
Yeah.
And a magical, mystical woman robs him of the scabbard.
Yeah.
So there's a sort of mirroring there. The woman from the lake and the woman above the lake. One's good, one's bad. And so there's the stealing of the scabbard and the returning to the lake against its will. It's not being accepted, it's being forced. And then the sword being accepted and given.
I would love to have that scabbard. Like in a D&D campaign, that'd be so cool.
It would be good.
What do you think mechanically those effects would be?
I would say... I mean, I think it's pretty close to the periaptive wound closure. It's like on 0 hit points, you're automatically stabilized. Like, you're not bleeding out. You're in no danger of death. You don't have to make death saving throws, but you're still exhausted.
Maybe also, while this scabbard is attuned to you, you cannot suffer the bleeding condition.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, you can do that. Maybe it gives you a little bit extra armor class.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a shield that you don't have to wield.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I hope that gives any DMs out there ideas. You should use that.
Yeah. And it's a way cooler item to give than just, hey, look, it's this badass sword. Like, you know what they're going to do with that.
Yeah.
But, give your paladin that does the sword and board, be like, hey, you can wear this scabbard, attune to that, and then go with a greatsword.
Yeah.
Two-hand. But you still get the benefits of the shield.
That'd be cool.
At least your armor.
All right, we're wrapping up, and once again, I've forgotten to credit at the beginning.
We did it so good last time.
We
did
did.
it this time.
Next time we'll get it.
Here we go.
So I want to thank Chris Mooney for being our audio recordist for this episode. I want to thank Midwest Studios for providing us a space to record and most of our equipment. Thank you, Jake Weller, for our theme music. Thank you, Callum Bowen. Forgot to credit you in the last episode. Thank you, Callum Bowen, for narrating our chapter blurbs.
Yeah. And correcting our pronunciation.
Yes.
We did not take your advice, but we do appreciate the information and the correction.
And you know what? I'm sure that the audience will appreciate that.
Yeah. And be a little more malleable than
Thanks, Zach, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I really do appreciate the symbolism you bring to these discussions.
It's my favorite.
And thank you all for listening. I really enjoyed reading this, taking notes on it. I've enjoyed telling it to you. I hope you guys are enjoying listening, and I hope you guys keep listening in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.